This weekend, Andy solves a murder, Ryan hates spray foam, and we play a culturally appropriated squirrel. I'm Ryan,
I'm Andy.
and this is Weekend Rental, episode 178. Well, welcome back, everybody. Andy, how have you been? Busy, sounds like.
Oh yeah. It's the time where all your kids show off all their year's accomplishments.
Yeah.
All their hard work comes to fruition, and then as a parent, you have to go see it.
Whether you want to or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been doing that too. It's been like choir concerts, after school picnics. I had like a performance plan review thing today. It's been a lot.
Yep.
And the weather has sucked lately. I feel like we get rain like every 2 days now, and
Yeah.
between having to do kids things and then the weather being terrible, like not much is happening.
Yep. Tomorrow's the last day of school for my kids.
That's awesome. We got like Wednesday. I mean, so Memorial Day is coming up, so they'll just have 2 days of school next week. But
Yeah. Okay.
which my wife was kind of like, I am just gonna try to enjoy this last week of peace because she works
Yeah.
from home, so she's like, I'm just gonna have those two psychos like screaming at each other all summer now, and
Yep. That's my tentative plan. We'll see how long I last with the 4 kids at home while I'm trying to work too. We'll see.
yeah, you gotta get that Wi-Fi out to your shop building. That's what I do now. Is I just go hide in the garage and I can lock the damn door.
Yep.
As long as the Wi-Fi reaches, which that was fun. So I don't know if I let you know, but we decided to go ahead and put in a new central air. And my cable comes in the same closet that my like utilities are in, and so I'm working from home just to like make sure that nothing comes up that I need to deal with. My wife's already working from home, and I'd say within like 90 minutes of the guys being there, they managed to drop something and unplug my router. Like I'm mid conference call, and my wife's like, "Do you have internet?" I'm like, "No, I don't have internet." So I gotta go down there and like fudge with stuff. I was so annoyed. The guy's like, "So just make sure I don't unplug that." I was like, "If you could, be nice."
Turns out the router has nothing to do with the air conditioning system, so I think we're okay.
No, and it was all just because he unscrewed like a duct and dropped it like 6 feet down onto like a bunch of wires. So,
Jeez.
yeah, that's a whole ordeal too. They did an okay job. There was a lot of little things like, I don't know, let's say like you paid to have someone install a central air conditioning unit. You know, they're not cheap. I mean, I got a fairly reasonable price. It was like $4,400, which is, that's what they run. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And I look out the windows. These guys are packing up, right? Because I have a HEPA filter system. I don't have like the cheap $1 filters that people put in their furnaces. It's like a 6-inch allergen thing. They're like $40, right? So there was a sale a while back at the local hardware store, and I stocked up and bought 3 of them because they were discounted. Plus, I got 11% off. And I look out the window, and I see this little fucker walking down with some of his tools and a brand new shrink wrapped filter. I was like, huh, that's weird. I don't suppose he'd be taking my filter, would he? And I go down in the basement. Yeah, he took my. So here's the scenario. So I asked the other guy who came back in. He's like, I just need your money. I need the other half of the payment. I'm like, sure. Anything I need to know? You want to show me how things work? He's like, no. He's like, oh well, we did replace the filter. So here's the two possibilities. Either they brought a filter to put a new filter in as part of a new installation, which would make sense. And then they did that, put their filter in and stole my filter. Or they just didn't bring one at all, lied to me because I haven't checked, and just stole my filter anyway. But either way, I didn't get a discount. It's not like they knocked $40 off. So
Right.
I'm just like super annoyed because it's not even like they could have confused it. I have it on a utility shelf full of like 8 other boxes. The guy wedged it out of there and then pulled some other shit that was on top of it that was laying on the floor. I'm just like, the nerve of you people.
Wow.
So that bothered me. And then also the way they sealed it up on the outside of the house was, you know how like generally contractors use like appropriate compounds to seal things, especially into concrete. These guys are like, we're professional installers, but what we'll use to seal this conduit in the hole that we drilled through your foundation because they needed to make it bigger because I guess the previous one wasn't good. I don't know. They took $3 expanding yellow spray foam, and that's what they filled that hole up with. So then I'm like, really? Like, I've never seen anyone who wasn't just a hobbyist dipshit, dude. Like, I don't even use that stuff hardly at my house. So then I got to go out there like 2 days later after it hardens and cut like the elephant tumor off the side of my house, and then go to the hardware store and buy the proper caulking that you're supposed to put on foundations and concrete. And like, just like the little things, you know what I mean? Like, I'm grateful that I have an AC that works, but come on.
Oh, I could have a whole podcast about HVAC gone wrong.
That's true. But just the audacity to steal someone's filter. It pisses me off. And then the main guy texts me on Saturday. He's like, hey, thanks for your business. If you have any questions, let me know. And I wanted to be like, yeah, did you steal my motherfucking filter, you jackass? But it wasn't his. It wasn't the lead guy. It was just the install crew. So, but I'm trying to let it go, but clearly it's still bothering me a week later. But yeah, into what we're actually here for, I guess. I'm curious on your first one, Animal Well. Are you killing animals, throwing them down the well? Are you having live animals, throwing them down your well?
No, it's a Metroidvania indie game.
Oh, I think I've seen some stuff.
This is the first Metroidvania indie game I think they've ever made.
It's like a $10 game too, right?
I don't know how much it was. It had to have been at least 20, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it done. I mean, Ori,
but this,
Hollow Knight.
Exactly. It's a new concept. This one has scan lines, so you know it's good then.
So does that one that I paid entirely too much money for and haven't played yet. Hold on.
Axe and Verge?
I got it right here. No, well, I played part of that. This is riveting podcasting. Carrion, that's one.
Oh, yeah.
And I have not played that.
Yep. Animal Well it's very there's hardly any music. It's just like ambient music. And you're just kind of it's a lot like that. It's more like nature ambient music, but it's a Metroidvania with some interesting skills. Like one of them is like a bubble. So you blow a bubble and then you can jump on the bubble and pop it. So instead of like just giving you a double jump, instead of just a double jump, you have to like produce a bubble and then have a little bit more timing skill on that jump. There's a yo-yo, there's a frisbee, there's a whole bunch of other cool little upgrades that you need to progress different areas. And I think you could take on all 4 bosses. Maybe. I'm not sure if you could do them in any order or not. But there's 4 bosses. I've got 3 of them done. But the thing about this is it's really scratching the itch of I'll call it the Fez-like, where there's a lot of stuff you're seeing that doesn't make any sense as you're going through it the first time.
Okay.
And then the more time you revisit that with different knowledge and different items that you have, you're like, oh, so this is what that means. And then, you're kind of unraveling secrets of kind of the world. So that part is really, really cool in this game. And I'll say that's like top notch.
Yeah, and it's rare that gets done subtly or in an intelligent way. You know what I mean? In this day and age, where everything's got to be like a tutorial or a sign on a wall or whatever.
Yep. So, like for example, there's hidden secrets that you get called, or they're just eggs, right? And after every so many eggs that you find, you get a tier door that unlocks and you usually get an item. And one of them was a flute but it also had a area with a bunch of like warp doors. So you can take all these shortcuts to all these different places, which is hugely helpful. But at the bottom of this area, there's like a fish that just jumps out of the water. And each time he jumps, he points a different way.
Okay.
And then just like putting that together, it's like, that's weird. What's going on? Turns out if you put the D-pad in the same way on the flute, that warps you to the warp room. So wherever you are on the map, you can instantly go to the warp room, and then of course then go to all these other warp doors, which has been a lifesaver for traversal in this game too, which is also, something that drags down Metroidvanias quite a bit is,
backtracking.
Yep. But yeah, I would recommend it quite a bit. I don't know how long it is. I'm probably about 5 hours in, but yeah,
it's good for
it's got that. Yeah, it's got that cool puzzle part to it.
Nice. Yeah, I have heard a little bit about that now that you mention it. So, is it Game Pass or did you have to buy it?
I bought it. I think it might be PC only right now.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Interesting. I'm trying to think if I've played anything in between. I probably haven't. I've done some more Sea of Thieves. We've been playing some more Nidhogg 2 post MGC. That's been kind of a go-to. I think that's been about it. I just haven't had time. So I've been doing like brutal back-breaking yard work trying to get ready for spring. So I've been trying to earn my free weekends to enjoy fun things, but the weather's not great. So maybe I should get back to video gaming.
No, yeah. See, my point of view is that you have to take, if you have a moment, you have to take it right now, because that planning bullshit never works out. At least from my, something always comes up. Like you do the work first, right, get it all done, and then something comes up, and you're like, oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, you're telling me
there goes that weekend.
I had a big plan for the weekend, and part of it was like prepping to stain my deck. So I did the whole work in advance. Like, this is what we're doing. And I did the wash, the chemical wash and everything. And what happened all weekend? It rained all goddamn weekend. Now it's raining every 2 days. So by the time I do get around to my freaking deck, because I'm not doing it this weekend, it's probably going to be just as dirty as it was before. So yeah.
Yep.
I could tell everyone a riveting story about how I spent like 8 hours removing landscaping rocks, laying new tarping down, and then painstakingly washing all those rocks before putting them back. But that's about as detailed as you want to get. And I'll just let everyone know that my old ass is still sore from that day. So,
yep.
The best part is it looks exactly like it did before. So
the rocks
totally
are shinier,
worth
though.
it. Yeah. There's less weeds, that's for sure. But
yeah, we did that last year.
Yeah.
Same type of thing, and you have to have like a workstation for the rocks. It's a process.
My wife and I agreed that after doing that what we will do instead in 10 years is just cut down every living plant that we've landscaped with and just basically pour poison on top of the rocks to, like, instead of solving the problem the logical way, I'm just going to kill anything that would possibly grow there. And that will be what happens, because I'm never in my life doing that again. It's terrible.
We talked about it I think the last time, how great it would be to just have down in the Arizona where they just have rock yards. But now that you're talking about this, they got to wash those rocks after.
But they're so arid, nothing grows. I bet you're fine, because there's no soil there to begin with. It's just sand and arid, like death. And then you just have those fake grass backyards, which is probably ideal if you don't have a dog. I guess if you have a dog, it's gross, but yeah, I'm not envious. There's a guy, like I said, I think I've told you, he's like 4 blocks down from me, who has paved his literal entire yard. I have no idea why he did that, but he's on to something.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some news that kind of hits close to the podcast. We haven't talked about them recently, but friend of the podcast, CJ, his wife, they run Replay Games in downtown Fargo. They've been around 6 years now. And it's basically like a console retro to modern arcade where you play per time slot to play video games. Huge library of games. They do a lot of community events, but they put out the message in between us recording last time that they're going to be shutting her down. And I think June 26th is their last day. So it's a bummer to see those guys go. we've had CJ on the podcast a few times. We've filmed stuff in his old location. Post pandemic, everything kind of went wonky, and I haven't been down there really much at all since they've relocated. But they were still a really cool business. But I could see, I talked to him a little bit through Messenger, and it was just kind of the burnout, right? Like they were both there all the time, and they got a young kid. Like you can't have the family life and the small business life, and
you can't have everybody in on it, right? Yeah.
And you'd see him down there all hours of the day. So I'm sure as much as you love something, your passion only goes so far when you're just, the reality of we got to spend more time together. So
yeah,
but it's a bummer.
Yeah, that's really too bad. I mean, to survive COVID in a business like that was already amazing.
Well, and they already had two businesses of that type that went up around. Well, some had pre-existed, but one started right around the same time he did. None of those businesses survived. So he was clearly doing something right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I've been talking. I think we should get down there one more time and do a game night if it works out. I know. Time's moving quick, but it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Do a send off, but hopefully on to better things for them. But it was awesome while it was here.
Yeah. It's a great place.
Yeah. And you know what else is a great, not place, but thing? It's
what is that?
That Shiver group or whatever that Nintendo just bought out of the blue, seemingly. Which for anyone who's not familiar, they were kind of a port powerhouse for games to the Switch. I think Mortal Kombat, and there's another notable one that just came out that I should be thinking of. But Nintendo seems to be securing, I would say, their third-party porting future for their next-gen console that is sure to be underpowered.
I was going to say that doesn't bode well for the next system, does it?
So acquiring a team that is very specialized in porting over proper ports of games that shouldn't run on ancient hardware makes a lot of sense. I think they're like is it a Florida-based team? Did I read that right? Like they're stateside.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But I don't know if there was like any rumors or anything about this, and it was just like, it's some paperwork, and then the next day it was like, we bought them. So it's like 100% ownership stake. So,
which is crazy news in today's world of the video game industry that somebody is buying another studio, because it seems like they're just shutting them down right now.
Right. Well, and it's even more rare that you have a studio that mostly doesn't specialize in, I mean, I guess that's not true. There's been teams that have been bought up on the PlayStation side for sure, but for Nintendo to be forward thinking to that extent, because they've never, they've always had to like lean on other people to get interest, but now it's like, hey, we have our own in-shop studio. Like, let us help you. We'll port your games, and that's probably a very smart move on their part. It might actually fill some of the, void that happens, especially during the start and end of Nintendo consoles where they don't have enough first-party stuff.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, what was their last one? Was it Mortal Kombat? Their last port?
What was it? I thought there was something newer than that. Oh, the Hogwarts. Or no, maybe Mortal Kombat was newer than that because it's a new Mortal Kombat that just came out, right? Yeah, so maybe that was newer.
I don't know if maybe that one didn't make it to Switch. I don't remember if it did or not. But
yeah, both of those were last year and a half, 2 years. So. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that's probably a sweet spot to be in if you're that type of studio, to be owned by a company that probably, like you said, isn't probably just going to gut you. Like it's not it's not generally in Nintendo's nature.
No.
I mean, for them to like do the whole backtracking and rehanding off they did with Metroid Prime 4 was pretty odd, out of character for them. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm they still have their standards, right? Like if you're not meeting standards, I'm sure but yeah, they're not just going to gut you. They're not the hi-fi rush situation would not have happened at Nintendo.
Yeah. And that like conversations immediately with the next gen console from those AAA games is going to be like, hey, we don't want to waste resources on that. and Nintendo now has a chance to probably bring over. And I don't know. I guess maybe that's the catch-22 is that you're always excited to see those things become portable, but it's never the Nintendo audience that gravitates towards them. And now the type of people who want to see that stuff be portable probably are just buying Steam Decks. So
Yeah.
I wonder, they're gonna have to pick
Yeah.
and choose. They're gonna have to pick and choose what they port.
Yeah. That's very true, because a lot of those people probably just did get a Steam Deck and put it on PC. You're going to get a better, I don't know, probably a better experience out of it because you're running it native. It's not a downgraded port,
Yeah. And maybe I'm looking at it wrong, and maybe they aren't looking for the external help. Maybe they're thinking like, hey, here's the 3 games we didn't bring over from the Wii U to, the Switch 2. So that Twilight Princess HD remaster might be in the works. Who knows?
We're having a hard time bringing our previous generation games up to their current generation. We need help.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think with them anymore. But you got another interesting acquisition. I see.
Yeah, so IGN kind of came out and said they bought a whole host of other kind of game journalist outlets
from a UK media site, right?
Yeah,
I know so Eurogamer was one.
Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, that's a big one. VG 24/7, Dicebreaker. I think they get some other stuff into like Digital Foundry. I don't know if they own all of that, but there's some of that. But it's kind of crazy to think about like how that is still getting passed around, like those type of outlets, like what's the value proposition that they're like, okay, what are they going to do for IGN? Like, I feel like immediately, at least the nice part, which isn't nice to the people that work there, but at least they didn't string them along and say everybody's staying on and it's going to be, because nobody ever believes that. They just out the door said, we're buying this place. These are the people that are let go,
Yeah, and I would guess most of that is to just get URLs to redirect, and they will pull as much of that under the IGN umbrella as they can. You know what I mean? So they're just a one-stop global shop for, because I mean that is such a dying landscape. It's so flat as it is. The traditional media and review method for video games,
Right. Yeah, especially like written, review based, all that stuff. I mean, I think out of all of those, the Digital Foundry stuff is the only thing that's really been like, because they take a different angle to it than anybody else, right?
Yeah. And Eurogamer,
I guess I was never big fans of all those other ones.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eurogamer felt like one of those other companies that's just like, they're just reposting the same thing that Kotaku and IGN, it's like, you don't need a separate stop for that. There's other ways. And I suppose it's good for IGN because they can say like, hey, now we have these markets as well, like, so our ad revenue is going to go this much farther. And or they're pulling for AdSense anyway. I don't. But I so seldom reference IGN for anything. I think the most I do is just coincidentally search for a review or something on YouTube, and maybe they're the first one that's live, and I'll watch it, but that's about it. I don't go there for any reason.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like all those outlets, what's the traffic like anymore? Game guides, like if you're searching, like I feel like those maybe you would come across because you're searching for something specific and they might have an answer to. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of like, I don't know, real stories that you're like, okay, that's the only place you're going to get that, or the reviews, there's so many YouTube things, like you said, that you get to know. I think that really started with Giant Bomb and, actually 1UP, which let's talk about IGN killing different things. 1UP was the one that I really loved, that actually had people that you were like, oh, I can get to know these people and get to know what they like. And how that would feed into my review, my look on their review of something, right? And
yeah, and they carried over some legacy people and featured stuff too. Like early on, you'd get stuff from like Sean Baby on there and stuff, and like
yeah,
there was a lot of stuff like with personality. Like I would agree with you. That was the last website that I cared about who was writing what, and I looked and but that they nuked that
well,
before that even got to like a video format even really. Like that was
oh
totally
yeah,
dead before the onset of YouTube. Because I want to say I was in the tail end of college when that got bought up, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna trickle stuff in here for now, but just so you know, like it's done."
yeah. I mean, that's when they first bought it. They pitched it. There was going to be parallel. Everybody was separate. It was going to be their own thing. Of course, that's never the way it is, because
Right.
within a year, most of the people were gone, and the content, like all of the content of that website is gone. It's just
Yeah.
completely missing, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's terrible.
And you gotta love too, like I always love the irony and the whole like GameSpot giant bomb starting as a result of an ousting and firing at GameSpot just to like
Yeah,
reacquire them to fire the same guy a second time. Like
yeah.
I'd love to
And
know,
that,
like nobody has really like opened up about the details of that, but like that had to have been rough for Gersman on that whole thing.
yeah, yeah. That they've been bought and sold so many times too that it's like, how do you even have an identity or a business plan or any plan at all on how you're doing things? But
well, and then when they rebuilt Giant Bomb, they just hired back all the fringe people, and they're like, "Now you're running the show." And I do like some of those fringe people. Particularly, I don't like the guy who is seemingly running the show now, but
yeah,
I'm not. But Reichert, I'll take any day. So, and Grubb is good stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. We're gonna be,
but they don't do reviews, or they don't really do. No. They don't even do quick looks anymore.
Do they even do a traditional site anymore, or are they just YouTube based?
Yeah, I don't know.
They've got to. I mean, if there's a subscription model, I'd be shocked. But yeah, it's like I don't know. I just think like even with everything coming under IGN, I just think IGN is just like. I guess that website will continue because it has to, but like I don't know any of the editors over there anymore. I don't watch any of I don't listen to any of their podcasts anymore. I couldn't tell you the personalities. Mm-hmm. I've been 10 years ago, I would have known, I'd have had my favorites, but all those people are gone.
Yep.
So I don't know. I can see this makes sense in an industry that's like shrinking in a logical way that, the media around it would too, but I don't know. It's just more of a bummer than anything.
Yeah. It just feels like they just keep passing these to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's like, what's their plan? I don't know.
It's so weird too, because IGN has like been shuttering offices, right? Like there was always like IGN, Europe, I don't know what it was. There was IGN Australia, but like all that stuff got basically brought into the US banner, and that was kind of it. So
yeah. And then they're like, oh shit, we need a European thing. Let's buy Eurogamer.
Yeah. So weird. So weird. Well, the one other nugget of news I wanted to touch on, because it still makes my head hurt, is the fact that apparently from a reliable source it's leaked and mostly confirmed that the next Xbox, not the redesigned Xbox, but the new console will be landing in 2026 with an announcement next year, and that the first exclusive game to be announced is a Call of Duty game, which I guess makes sense, but also makes me think maybe they missed the mark on understanding where Call of Duty is at in the zeitgeist of culture, because you've already destroyed Halo. That would have been the obvious choice, was to make a good Halo game, but no one's going to buy that shit now, even if you knock it out of the park.
Yeah, it would have to be something incredible on Halo, I think, now.
And I just it just blows my mind that we're 2 years away or less from a next gen, when it feels like my current gen hasn't even started.
Yep. It doesn't make any sense.
I really hope Microsoft pulls their.
Are they even going to make a redesign?
I can't imagine. Well, they get that discless one that's supposedly coming, but like there's already discless
Sure.
versions with the S, but a discless X. But like my hope is that they at least do one SKU. Like they do a proper next gen console for anyone who wants to linger on. S and X are there for you, right? Like, but don't do the bullshit.
Xbox 360.
Yeah, don't do the whole parity thing. Like you have to run on this base level of hardware. Like fuck that. It didn't work.
No, not for what they were going for. I think for hardware sales, it probably worked out of the gate for them.
Well, and it helped that they were the only SKU available in stores for most of the year.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah. But now, looking back at it, I'm sure there's some regret for the people that bought it, and I don't know. Yeah, who knows about Xbox? I can't even imagine what's going on in that whole ecosystem, because it sure seems like Microsoft is pulling the strings more than the people in the Xbox area.
Yeah. I would concur. I just thought it was wild news, though, that they're already like at that stage. But I mean, I guess that's typically the losing move, right? Like if you're the one who's the most behind, you're the first to launch, is kind of what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it worked for 360 though. I mean, they dumped Xbox pretty quick, and they were first with 360, right?
Yeah, they could have let the Xbox go like 2 more years though, because there was so much untapped power, and like some of those late release games in the original Xbox were great. And given the troubles they had, they had early adoption, but I don't think the 360 actually took hold until 2 years after, in my mind.
Yeah.
It was Call of Duty. That Call of Duty launch was pretty much it.
Yeah. Now, if they had a exclusive Call of Duty back then, that would have been crazy.
But they had Halo back then. It's like they didn't need it. So
yeah. I mean, Call of Duty still sells. I mean, it's still one of the biggest selling games out there, but it's not like a.
But when you also have the free version baked in, right? Like there's Warfare. There's you don't need it. So, or what is it? Warframe? What is it called again? No, that's a different game. Call of Duty.
Yeah. What is it? Just
Warzone. That's what it is.
Warzone. Yeah. There you go. Yep.
I'll remove them from that, which is hilarious, because if you would have gone back about, I don't know, 12 years ago now, like Call of Duty was my life. Like I would basically buy, starting with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I basically bought Call of Duty every year, and that was the only game I played every day, all day, in my free time, up until the next game released. And that was basically it for 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, granted,
they had a stranglehold.
So at some point, it was just like, when my family goes to bed, I will play until I'm bloodshot at 2 a.m. and then get up for work. But yeah, it was quite the thing. And it was great for a period of time. Yeah.
Well, I think they said that the next one's coming out on Game Pass, and it was like, wow, that's big news. And then like, I probably won't play it.
Right. I think that's the only way I would maybe dabble in one, is if it was on Game Pass, but
yeah,
I don't think it will be enough, because I still don't play the free version. So
yeah.
I'm just getting too old for Call of Duty. God damn it.
Yeah. Well, and they're shutting down the 360 store here pretty soon, right? That's from what.
Yeah. I don't know that I care too much about that, though. I think I'm desensitized to stores at this point, because Nintendo pulling the plug and like Sony talking about stuff. I mean, it sucks every time you lose access to something, but
that was the first one that like had amazing games only on the store, though.
Summer of Arcade.
I felt like,
right? Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. It's just a bummer that they never got backwards compatibility working in the way that they should have, so that we shouldn't have to see a lot of these go away. That was always their promise from the launch of the 360 on, and they just always kind of stuck their foot in their mouth.
Yeah, they should be able to do virtualization at this point, like
right.
an Xbox should be able to virtualize the 360 in it,
If we can
emulate
do
it,
cloud
whatever.
like current gen games, you're right. We should be able
Yeah.
to totally do that. It's funny.
Yep. But there must have been something along the way where the licensing of video games or something changed on like what was like in perpetuity of backwards compatibility. You know what I mean? Whereas like
I'm sure it was
that was never a thing back in the day.
Right.
I mean, PlayStation stuff, it was just like it plays your old stuff. And there was no licensing stuff issues, but now it just seems like ever since the one was doing 360 backwards compatibility or whatever, or even the original Xbox, I felt like was pretty spotty on 360.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder
Mostly
if that
just
was
their
like
first party
licensing
titles.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was always kind of rough. Well, it looks like you've been playing a different game. Jedi Survivor, huh?
Yeah, that came to Game Pass now.
Is that the one that came out like a year ago that was the single person?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a sequel to Fallen Order. Is that who knows? You could say 4 different versions of a Jedi and something, and it would sound like a Star Wars game. But this one, yeah, it's a sequel to that one. I like the first one decent amount. And this one isn't pulling me in quite as much. But I'll probably end up going through it. These type of games just aren't out. Like huge single player, like action games.
Yeah.
So
used to be the bread and butter.
Right.
PS2 to PS3 era even. Like that's what sold the PlayStation 3 was Spider-Man and
yep.
I mean not even the good Spider-Man games, but people thought they were good back then and
yeah.
like your Nathan Drake, why can't it Uncharted?
Yeah.
Last of Us, all that stuff.
Yep.
Tomb Raiders.
Yep.
I mean, all that stuff is huge.
This has a pretty good action in it, but it's a lot of Star Wars.
Do you like? Here's the thing with Star Wars games that make them good or bad is like, do you feel like a badass, powerful Jedi, or are you constantly getting nuked by like stormtroopers off screen and it's super frustrating?
This game does punish you if you don't play like they want you to.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they want you to parry. They want you to do all that stuff. So it's not. I'm sure there probably is a mode in there where you could just turn it down and just go in and mow everything down with one hit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's not a perfect way to make a Jedi, in a video game and be challenging because they would be able to do everything, right? Technically.
I didn't mind that though. Like back in like the original PS2 and Xbox era where they had some of those like Star Wars games where it was basically just like murder all the stuff in waves. Like I was okay with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I wanted. And like if I could do that now with like way prettier graphics.
Yep.
Like I'd even say Lego Star Wars was like perfectly balanced in that regard.
Yep. This one's weird because it has save spots. Like save points that you have to rest to get your health back. But if you rest, all of the enemies respawn in the same way. So it's kind of like a risk reward in that way. And I guess you could farm a little bit, maybe, I don't know. But if you do die, you're brought all the way back to that original save point. I think you lose all of your XP unless you can go all the way back and kill the guy that killed you. Then you get all your stuff back.
That's an odd and almost throwback choice.
Yeah, or Demon Souls. It reminds me of that. Like, go get your body after you die type thing. A little bit of that.
Sure.
And campfires and shit like that. So I feel like that's maybe where it's coming from. But it is weird to be... I don't know. Like I said, Star Wars, you have a vast majority of people coming in. It's hard to pinpoint them down into a specific style of gameplay like that.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Maybe that's one I would check out. I'm not sure. It
Yeah.
doesn't not interest me. I just don't know if I'm willing to jump into something like that. If it's not just like murder sim as a Jedi.
No, it's definitely not that. It's more structured than that. But then you got the Mortals of Evium or whatever the hell that game was that came out and bombed. That's on there now on Game Pass.
So there's that Hellblade 2?
Yeah, Hellblade.
Yeah, that's supposed to be good. I haven't looked at Game Pass.
Well, it should be. They've been talking about that one for like 3 years, and it's like I don't understand the.
Well, the first game won all sorts of awards too. Didn't they like take Game of the Year at like the Game Awards or whatever, or something crazy? Or
it was something like that. Yeah, I found that game incredibly annoying because I think that's probably why they gave it awards, because you're hearing like 6 different people inside of her head. The sound design in it is amazing, but I found it very annoying. But
yeah, I'll probably pass on the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you want to get into staff picks?
Yeah.
Curious on yours here.
Yeah, so I got a couple of like board game adjacent.
I'm glad you're back to the
picks here.
Corner. Okay.
Yes,
adjacent,
back to the board game corner. These are kind of like take home versions of an escape room, kind of. The first one I'm going to recommend is the Unlock series. This is a system where they give you, it's a set of cards, and everything has a number on it, and they tell you how to set it up. A lot of them it'll be like a room, and then it'll have little numbers all the way around the room, and then you can go to those spots, draw the card that has that number on it. Might be a clue, it might be a whole other puzzle, whole bunch of different things. It might be an item. You can take different items and try and combine them, and you take the sum of the numbers and then pull the card that equals that. And sometimes that is not a good number, or it's incorrect, and you get a penalty. All of this runs through a phone app.
Oh.
So some of the puzzles are on the phone. Some of you kind of have like recordings about different things. You have your hints, and then of course it's all, the timer is on there. So that's all based in there. I find it pretty enjoyable. Most of the time I end up stuck in a certain spot, and it's something like kind of right in front of you, but it's not like an escape room where you can actually be in a space and actually like look around at things at all different angles, right? It's all these cards that are just kind of like, well, there's one dimensional, and if you miss it, you miss it, and there's no way you're gonna solve the puzzle then. But overall, it's not too bad in that regard. There's just usually like once or twice that you might need to like, okay, this is not going to happen without a hint or something. And then the hints are pretty good. The second one is kind of like that, but a little bit more involved in that. This is the Hunt a Killer series. They make these in Target now, I think even. It's a escape room in a box, yes, but
I've seen these.
They actually,
what you're talking about.
Yeah, they actually have like little trinkets and stuff inside.
These are like cold case files, almost things, right?
Yep. Yeah, we've done one of them so far, and yeah, there's like little trinkets inside, and you're reading through an autopsy report, and then you're looking at all the witness testimonies and stuff, and trying to figure out what adds up.
Are you getting the kids into this, or is this like adult game time?
The kids were into the Unlock ones. They like that one quite a bit. The other one was just me and Amanda playing through that one. I don't know if the kids could get through that one or not. They might be able to. we found it somewhat easy. Like we were kind of like, well, it can't be. We've watched too many mystery shows to be like, well, it can't be the obvious one, right? Like the one that you first come to.
Right.
But it was, so it was a little kind of underwhelming. It's like, oh well, this must be for, I don't know. It wasn't quite advanced enough, I would say, than I was expecting. But it is cool to find a system and or find a clue and then take it to an actual lock to unlock it, and find something that was inside this lock. And then I'm thinking about who did this. Like, there's some factory somewhere in China, and they're just like, "What the hell are we doing here? We're putting we're we're locking these pieces of paper in this thing, and then we're putting it in a box." And they're talking about dead people. What? Americans are screwed up.
Well, the next logical step for you guys is just to start your own like YouTube channel and start a cold case file where you guys like literally dig up cold case files, and then start going down like the Google image rabbit hole and like start solving murders and stuff. Like all those people that find like, bodies in ponds in the backyards of like Florida and stuff.
Yep. That podcast will be on Geekade pretty soon.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you save some lives and, well, maybe not save lives because people are dead, but at least bring some closure to those who might still be living. I'm sure the lakes country, I mean, you live in the state of 10,000 lakes. There's got to be some bodies and trunks. Well, in certain areas of the state, 100%, but more than you think elsewhere too. So.
Do you think this has happened yet where somebody started a podcast about that, like solving a cold case or what, solving a murder and all the evidence, and it turns out the people that killed the person were the people hosting the podcast?
Oh, that's
because they wanted something.
100%.
They needed. Happened. It's just content, baby.
Oh yeah, that's the podcast. You start doing the murders to make the content. Like that's the ultimate commitment to the content. It's so dark. Oh. Nice. I like it. Well, yeah, it's funny because I've been curious on those like hunt to killer things because there's like 4 or 5 of them at the store now. I'm always like, I wonder what that'd be like, but I haven't tried it.
The one that we did was like the second the next step up from the easiest, I would say.
So you need to go.
There's one even easier.
You're saying go hard tier.
Yeah, I would say more on the other end of it. Okay. You do have to read everything. I mean, it definitely does have like, oh, where was this person at this time? And like, you're kind of imagining it in your head. So it does a lot of, where an escape room, you're, like I said, you're in the spot, you're in the place. So it's a little bit more grounded in that, where this is like, you have to, it is a little bit different than an escape room because you have to think about like, all of this in your head of like where everything is and what's happening at certain times. And
it's pretty crazy. Cool. Makes sense. Cause that's like all the craze right now, right? Like it's all those shows. So capitalize on the hype.
Yep.
Mine is a little less detailed or exciting. So a band I listen to that a lot of people take issue with, because their lead singer is Falling in Reverse, which I'm not going to get into whether or not people in bands should make bad comments or do horrible things. Like, like cancel culture is such a weird thing for me in like that industry, because before the internet, why did everyone love Motley Crue and Ozzy? Like they were all horrible, degenerate fucks, but you're like, they're rock stars. Like, and it's just like, everyone still listened to the music. It didn't matter. But nowadays, like, I'm not defending anything, like questionable human being, but anyway, Falling in Reverse put out a new single, and it's called Ronald, and you need to watch, don't listen to the single. Well, I mean, listen to the single if you want to, but go watch the music video. It must have had the most fucking insane budget. It like starts out with him full video game FPS, just accosting a bunch of people in like a SWAT car. That thing explodes. It goes in like a full-on Terminator 2 chase. It ends up on like a skyscraper thing, and then like fucking machine gun fire out of a helicopter with blast beats from the drums lining up with it, which is awesome. And
Wow.
he has no clean vocals in like the first like 2 minutes of song. It's just straight screaming. It's probably the heaviest song he's put out as Falling in Reverse, or if not, it's one of them. And then it evolves in like a weird thing. It's like a heaven and hell thing, and he's got Tech Nine does a rapping bit, and then he like ascends, and then somehow goes into hell, and then he's fighting basically a Balrog for some reason, who's voiced by Alex Terrible, and then it's the most, and then he's like superhero laser beam fighting. It is the most insane, unbelievably produced 3.5 minute ride. Whether or not you like the music, just to take in the spectacle is just mind boggling. The thing had like, I want to say it got like 6 million views in 6 days. Like it's just nuts.
Jeez. Huh.
And they did that, and they're pushing now. They were going to do it. It was going to be the zombie EP. They announced it like basically during the pandemic. It was going to be like 5 songs, but he's putting out now a full album. First full album they've done in like, was 2017 the last one? I think 2017 was the last one. So it's been a long time, but it's a new album, but it mostly just has like 3 new songs. It's got like all the stuff that they've had on the radio for the last 5 years, like Popular Monster, Zombified, like all that stuff's on there. But I recommend, regardless of anyone's musical taste, to just watch the Ronald music video, because it is fucking nuts.
Wow.
It's great.
Huh.
But
that's crazy to begin with, that music videos are still a focal point, you know? I guess in YouTube it is kind of like some bands.
Yeah.
That's what makes them is the music video, but
yeah, they're bigger than ever. And like, you can say what you want about Ronnie Radke, their lead vocalist, and who he is as a human, but he's very smart when it comes to image and marketing and leading that band. So they had some big commercial albums. They had their last album called Coming Home that went out and just like absolutely tanked. So that's when he just stopped doing, because a lot of artists don't do that. They don't do the full album cycle model. And then he just was like, no, I'm going to spend 12 to 15 months and I'm going to make a banger that's going to crush. And then they put out what I thought were super high level music videos up to this point. They're nothing compared to this. And then, you know, all of those songs have been taken off, like Popular Monster, Zombified. All of that's been huge on like contemporary rock radio. So it's like a really wild but super lucrative like way to grow his band. So it's pretty crazy. It's smart. Like, why do you need to stick in the rock world? Why do you need to stick to the traditional album cycle when in pop and hip hop, you know, it's singles. So pretty cool. It's weird too. Right. Like, yeah. My favorite part was like I pre-ordered the vinyl because I like all the songs that are on here. And again, it's weird because some of these singles that he's putting in this album are 5 years old. But what I love is they're calling it the name of the album is going to be Popular Monster. And he took his mugshot and slapped it on the cover from when he was originally arrested and thrown out of Escape the Fate, his original band, because he was involved in a murder, essentially. That's how he formed Escape the Fate, was he wrote it while he spent 2 years in prison for being an accomplice to murder. He showed up to a street fight. Somebody came with a gun. He happened to be present. And
this man should have the highest standards of the cancel culture council.
Right. Yeah, again, he's I'm not going to defend any of his life choices or things he's said or done, but I do think he is a genuine rock star in that regard, and he just says ridiculous shit. He dresses like a psychopath. He puts out ridiculous music videos. Like there aren't enough rock star attitudes or bands left in rock and roll. Like all that fell apart in the 90s when, you know, it wasn't like an image anymore. It was like 6 guys in t-shirts and, you know, jeans, and like rock needs some of that. Rock needs a guy like that or an MGK, as much as I'm not going to defend a lot of that stuff. Like there's a reason some of those bands were big back in the day, and rock was big back in the day. You're going to tell me that Poison,
right. Well,
Motley Crue, and, you know,
they just live a different lifestyle. Like you can't hold them to the same standard either, you know?
Right. Yeah. but I rambled probably enough for a 3-minute music video, but I'd recommend it. And now,
Yeah, sounds good.
weekend rental.
Yeah.
So, weekend rental, for anyone uninitiated, we pick a game for a given system, we play it, and give our opinion as we would personally rather buy, rent, or burn this title. We went with the Sega Genesis because it'd been a while, and we went with a game called Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel. This is very much the product of that mascot age in platforming where if you just made the right mascot, you might have the next Sonic or Mario on your hand, right? I'm gonna you go for it.
I feel like Sunsoft made a few of these already,
Arrow
which is
the
kind of
Acrobat,
weird.
wasn't that them?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the other one, but it does seem pretty generic in that regard, where it's just a squirrel with attitude. He dresses like he would be a cool. If he was a human, he'd be a cool teenager, right?
And possibly some very not appropriate cultural undertones or implications with the name and use of the rising sun. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Kamikaze isn't really used anymore. And he does run fast, but he's got the same problem that I find it with Bubsy.
I was just gonna say, this feels like a Bubsy game to me.
It kind of rubs into that area of just a lot of useless collectibles overall for score, which is, I mean, already what are we doing at this point? Score, you know? I thought that was pretty lame to have the collectibles just be score for the most part. I did like the secret rooms.
Yes.
How you have to like inflate
in a bouncy house door to like get in and out of secret bonus rooms.
Yeah, that's cool.
I didn't
but
like
overall
the baskets with balloons because it's so easy to just not clip into the basket after you'd cut it. So what was the point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of, at least what I play, and I didn't play a lot of this one, to be fair, because I got my fill of it pretty quick. Because it's like, you know what it was, you know, you play a little bit of this, it's like, this is what this is. It's there's nothing going to change my mind on this, I don't think. But there's a lot of like clouds and secrets and stuff like that where, you know, Mario, when you go in the clouds, it's an event. It's cool. When you go to Sonic and you like spin out and you're on top of the loop and you find the box, it's cool. It just seems like it's supposed to be part of the level. Like you're supposed to be up in the clouds and you're supposed to be in these areas all the time.
Right.
And it's usually just useless collectibles. It might be an extra life, which is good, I guess, or another hit.
But it's usually health, like a banana or a lollipop that does anything.
Yeah.
And what I think were pixie sticks or possibly tampons. It wasn't clear.
I'm sure they were tampons.
Yeah, I immediately, this felt very akin to Bubsy to me. Like, from just like you pointed out, like just the nonsensical verticality and like ever present like platforming and options to go into, plus the just right away that control speed going from like workable to you're fucked, and then enemies just meant to punish you for going even faster than a crawl. Like if you play the game with the intent of getting from A to B quickly, you are going to lose.
Yeah, I would say almost all of them jump at you.
Yes,
wherever you are, they are jumping at you. So it's like when you add that together to the speed that you're going already, it's not a good combination.
Well, and just the prevalence too of like enemies that spawn out of the ground is basically once you've stepped on them. So like there's no warning. It's just bullshit. I also did you take the time to watch the opening cutscene if you didn't touch anything on the title screen?
Oh no.
Okay, I
didn't know there was one.
You need to do that because basically like it's an opening scene where Kamikaze Squirrel is telling his like overlord that he needs to go back to his home planet or something and like rescue them. And the guy's like, no, you can't do that. And he's like, screw you, dude. I'm going to do it. But I shit you not. His master is just Sweet Tooth. It is 100% 16-bit Sweet Tooth. It's like, there's no mistaking it. Like somebody at like Single Track saw this and were like, that's a character. We can build this into our game.
Oh, wow.
So you have to watch this. It was uncanny.
Huh.
And way too much backstory for a game that's this fucking stupid. This is just the epitome of like garbage platforming. Plus there's just too much. A good platformer has simple controls and power-ups that play into those controls. This game's got way too much bullcrap going on. Like to learn that you had to like rapid press double jump to get peak double jump instead of like every other game is like jump, then time it at the top of your jump. So that was frustrating. And then realizing you could like hold down and press your jump or attack button to do a nunchuck thing if you were out of shurikens. And then the whole kamikaze part, which I suppose is where they got that from, where he just like dives and ground pounds, but that doesn't seemingly do a whole lot except break his teeth.
No.
And that's
there's certain areas that you're supposed to like control that too. And I could never get the hang of it. I don't know if it was whatever controller I was using, but there's a way you're supposed to like wrap around as you're going down and kind of do like the whole like Mario like with his cape thing going up.
Oh, is that what you're supposed to do?
I don't know if it's back up and down, but he can do something like that. That's where I ended up quitting, is because there was a section where you're supposed to dive down
and you couldn't get back up, right?
And then, well, you had to loop back up.
Yeah.
And that's what you had to do. You had to like dive and then kamikaze and somehow wrap the control around that he was going up. And I couldn't get it to work on my end. And I was like, okay, well, this is done. But yeah, I think the greatest sin of this was discovering that whole like that you have to press double jump immediately.
Yes.
The fact that the double jump does not equal the same height, no matter when you press it, is just, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's the basic rules of platforming. Yeah, I stopped the same spot you did because I didn't get the whole like I didn't get the momentum thing. I thought the kamikaze dive thing was only down. I didn't know you had to use the control to go back up. And yeah, it's like the probably fourth level where I was just like, I'm done. I've seen enough at this point.
Yep.
And then we're also forgetting a very annoying sequence that happens, I think, once every level or close to, where all of a sudden you're playing the game, but then you get like the cartoon like zoom in, and then it's just it's somebody looking down the sights of a gun at you, and you as the character then have to like haul ass and just blindly run through stuff so you're not getting shot to death on the screen. But then you're also just running mindlessly into whatever the fuck is in the level in front of you.
That's Duke Toko.
Yeah, it's neat. It's a neat concept, but it is the most frustrating bullshit.
It's not good for a platformer.
Yeah, it's so dumb. It would be kind of cool in like a 2-player mode if you could be like the dick who like just jumped in every couple of minutes and took a few pot shots at your friend. But when the game is just trying to like double destroy you for no reason, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get who thought that was fun.
We were that guy in Go-Go 13 last time, and that was the fun part.
Right.
The getting shot part is not the fun part of that.
No. And there's just zero warning, too. So you're just like, I'm just casually platforming, and now like, oh no, I need to run for my life. Yeah. It's just another one of those. I can say I probably think I'd put it on par with the first Bubsy, to where I don't know that I'd say it's a total abomination. I could see this being somebody's game that they look back on and like adored to some extent.
Yeah.
But just so forgettable in the sea of games that were like this at that time.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And Sunsoft, you expect decent music and nothing
awful. Did it even change between stages, or was it always just the same 30-second loop?
It was not good.
Yeah. And none of the characters then makes any sense. I mean, it's either just like weird Sonic animals or rejects for Mega Man bosses is basically. There's no continuity.
Nope. Yeah, it's not good.
It's not a good. I think that should have been on
Not
the
a
box.
good.
That's the review from GameSpot back in the day. It's not a good. 6 out of 10. Well, so what do we give it then? What's your official buy, run, burn line?
I'm going to be a little bit harsh on it. I think it's personally serviceable, but I have to say I'm going to burn it. I think it looks good for a Sega Genesis game, but the design is not all that great. There's some aspects that I liked about it, but overall it was just too generic. And the fact is, I kind of liked Blues Brothers more than this, even though I think Blues Brothers is a worse game. I think it's just the fact it's kind of the same thing in a shorter, more tight window, where this one is a little bit more stretched out. The levels are longer than they should be, I think, and a lot of it has to do with the verticality and the different dumb secrets. If you didn't care about that, I bet you could blow through this in like 15 minutes if you knew how to control the kamikaze stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna go burn.
I'll show it a little mercy just because I have a soft spot for the original Bubsy too, and I'll give it a rent. But it's definitely a rent once and never again sort of game.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I think I saw this on rental shelves in one of my local stores when I was a kid, but I never had a Genesis, so I guess I was spared of that misery. But yeah, I guess you understand why nobody ever talks about this game. So
yeah,
there's a reason.
It's not bad enough to be in like Angry Video Game Nerd, and it's not good enough to be good, to really look back on and say this is what. There's nothing in it that's really like that I could say I really like this part of it either. So
100% nailed it exactly. But I guess
if you put a double jump in, make it jump twice.
I mean, yeah, like literally getting to the end of that first stage and being like, why can't I get it? And then you get it one time and you're like, how did I do that? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Variable double jump heights is weird.
You'd expect that from a Turbo Graphics game where like maybe you set the turbo mode on the wrong thing and like you screwed yourself, but it's the Genesis game. You got one button.
Well, and you would expect that you would jump at the height of your first one.
It only
your
makes
first jump.
sense.
No.
Based on every other video game I've ever played. But yes.
Yeah.
Not kamikaze squirrels, I guess. Well, with that, I think that's another one in the books.
That is. Yeah, if you like our show, make sure you give us a rating. We would like that.
Oh, yes.
On Spotify, maybe?
Spotify would really
they do ratings. Yeah, that would be awesome. iTunes, of course. Is it called iTunes anymore?
Apple Podcasts.
Is that how old we are? Apple Podcasts.
And what's going on with Google?
That's how old I am.
Emails that's gone now. There's no Google Podcast anything?
No.
They just
they moved it to Spotify? YouTube or something.
Okay.
You know, they just changed the names of shit. They're just like, oh, it's going to be Stadia pretty soon. You can contact us at weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, of course. We're usually on Twitch. We skipped this last one just because we figured
rental, it's probably better.
Yeah, you know, we didn't know if it would be offensive, so we didn't want to get canceled on that one. So
yeah, what are the podcast that worries about that?
Yeah. Well, that's twitch.tv/weekendrental. Of course, check out all the other Geekade podcasts too. We don't shout those out enough. Those are always good if you have the time to listen to them. But until next time, be kind, rewind.